My name's Keene. I am a writer, and I'm from the west side of LA. Yeah, when I was about 9 or 10, my family moved to Pico Robertson. My family became Orthodox, like we're Orthodox Jews. So we moved to a more religious part of LA, and Pico Robertson was one of the two, I would say, biggest Orthodox Jewish enclaves in Los Angeles. So we moved there, we made our kitchen kosher, we started observing Shabbat, which is the Sabbath, and lived there until I went off to college when I was 18.
Now, you said your family became Orthodox Jews? They weren't raised that way?
Yeah, we were Reformed Jews until I was about 9 or 10. And then we became more observant, and I went headlong into it, and I'm still totally into it. So we switched me from a more, I guess it was just had a mixed Jewish population, like some Reform, some conservative, and switched me into a yeshiva day school when I was in 5th grade. And that just involved like a much more rigorous Judaic studies curriculum. And I loved it. So I did yeshiva school for another, I guess, 7 years after that.
So what's for those who don't know, who aren't familiar with the Jewish faith, what's the big difference between Orthodox and Reform?
It's probably most visible on Saturdays. So from Friday night to Saturday night, Orthodox Jews don't use computers, drive cars, anything like involving turning off or on electricity. Like we won't cook, whereas like Reform Jews will, and conservative Jews, most of them will also.
So is that why I see so many Orthodox Jews walking up and down Fairfax on the weekend, and they're walking blocks?
Exactly, yeah. So one of the big reasons that Orthodox Jews live in enclaves is because you have to walk to get to your prayer services on Friday night and Saturday. So if you live 3 or 4 miles away from your temple, then it's not really practical.
What do you remember most at 9 in terms of the change from going from Reform to Orthodox?
Not having McDonald's for breakfast anymore. I mean, like we weren't eating like cheeseburgers or anything like that because we were even as Reform Jews, there were certain things that we didn't do, like eat bacon and shellfish and cheeseburgers.
Okay, so when your family made this transition, was there more education about what it meant to be Jewish and more about the history? And I'm sure there must be tons of education about the Holocaust as well.
Yeah, but we were already getting that from the first school, and even when we were Reformed, we were still going to synagogue every Saturday. It was more just how we practiced the religion became different. And at my age, I mean, at 9 years old, 10 years old, you're hardly getting the Holocaust like education.
Why is that? Because I would think 9 is old enough and young enough to start learning about that.
It is, but I mean, just like the rigorousness of it isn't. It's a lot to tell. Like you want the 9 and 10-year-old kid to really appreciate and enjoy the religion before understanding kind of the persecution aspect of being a minority.
So moving to the Pico Robertson area put you in a different community that was probably a little bit more diverse than the neighborhood you moved from?
I mean, maybe broadly speaking, but in Pico Robertson, like our whole identity was really just staying within Orthodox Judaism, and you would eat at kosher restaurants, like you would shop at the kosher grocery stores. All my new friends were Orthodox, so like there was really no interaction with those outside areas. It was really like, and still is, like it's living in an enclave, like living in a ghetto. To the extent that the area around Pico Robertson was diverse, it wasn't really it wasn't really like known to me what lied beyond, or what lay beyond those streets.
Now, you mentioned ghetto. A lot of people associate the word ghetto with black communities in the United States, but historically, I believe it's an Italian word to describe Jewish communities in Italy, right?
Exactly. It wasn't always a bad thing. I mean, I think Jewish people like living in Jewish areas because of the community and just the closeness, I think. But it also wasn't always a matter of choice. And I think one thing that was interesting about this article was understanding kind of what freedom of movement looks like for different minority groups. And when Jewish people lived in ghettos, like, they weren't allowed to live anywhere else. And sometimes they weren't allowed, and eventually they weren't allowed to leave. And I think Cadillac-Corning, which I wound up writing this article about, kind of showed how a neighborhood could become a ghetto sort of by default, or not by default, but by, I guess, policy and by choice,
Now, before we get into the article about this community, I wanted to ask, did your family or your parents have a connection to Jews that moved from Brooklyn, New York to Los Angeles first? Because before they moved to the West Side, the Pico Robertson area, they lived in East LA at the turn of the century. Is your lineage track back to that?
No, not exactly. My grandma was like a Brooklyn Jewish, she was like raised in an orphanage in Brooklyn. And my mom was like raised in New York. But my dad's side came on the Mayflower. So it was just like the arc of Jewish history doesn't neatly go through my family history.
Before we fast forward to the article, because part of the article is your lived experience living over there, and you had learned early on kind of stay in this area. Don't go on the other side of, was it Robertson?
Robertson.
Talk about how, when that first became aware to you.
I can't put a finger on it specifically, and I had family friends and personal friends who lived east of Robertson.
Thanks for watching StreetTV.net. If you're not subscribed, please hit that button below and click the bell to receive alerts and notifications. Feel free to comment below so you can give us your feedback, and be sure to watch the 2 related episodes to the right. If you want to support this platform or follow us on social media, visit the link in the description. And thanks for watching StreetTV.net.